Picture this. I catch Carol Whitman, the 50-year-old HOA president, sprawled across my ranch fence at midnight, looking like a wannabe cat burglar who forgot her playbook. The moment my flashlight lit her up, she let out a scream that could wake half of Texas. Then had the nerve to dial 911, claiming I attacked her. But that was just the opening act of a drama so wild, so drenched in ego, it unraveled her entire world. Oh, and my security cameras. They didn't miss a single second. I'm Jenna, and 6 months ago, I traded city chaos for 5 acres of peace on the edge of suburbia, a haven for my graphic design work. The Texas sunset was glowing orange when my phone pinged with a motion alert from the security system I'd installed. After my chickens started vanishing one by one, my land sits next to Meadow Creek Estates, a cookie-cutter HOA neighborhood, but it's supposed to be free from their rulebook, or so I thought. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and headed to the southern fence line. The humid evening air alive with the hum of cicadas, a sound I'd come to cherish. As I rounded my barn, my beam caught her in the act. Which city of the United States are you watching from? Drop a comment and share with us if you have any confrontation with the HOA. Will narrate your story on our channel. Something that made me stop dead in my tracks there halfway up my 6FT chain link fence was a woman in her 50s wearing what looked like an expensive pink tracksuit now torn at the knee. Her perfectly styled blonde hair was a mess, twigs sticking out at odd angles, and she was grunting with effort as she tried to hoist herself over. One designer shoe lay in the dirt below, and the other dangled precariously from her foot. She had a measuring wheel tangled in the fence links, and what appeared to be orange spray paint cans in a bag slung over her shoulder. What the hell are you doing? I called out, more bewildered than angry at this point. The woman let out a shriek that could have woken the dead, and probably did wake every dog in a 2m radius. She lost her grip and tumbled backward, landing ungracefully in a heap on my side of the fence. The remaining shoe flew off and disappeared into the tall grass. You scared me, she accused, scrambling to her feet while trying to maintain some dignity despite being covered in dirt and grass stains. I could have been seriously injured. This is assault. You assaulted me. I kept the flashlight beam steady on her face, noting the guilt that flashed across her features before being replaced by indignation and then rage. She was already pulling out her phone, her hands shaking with either adrenaline or fury. Ma'am, you're on my property. You were climbing my fence with surveying equipment. I'll ask again. What are you doing here? I said, keeping my voice level despite the absurdity of the situation. She straightened her shoulders, attempting to regain some authority, despite looking like she'd been wrestling with a tumbleweed. I am Carol Whitman, president of the Meadow Creek Estates Homeowners Association. I was conducting a routine inspection of the community, landscaping and future expansion areas. Her voice had that practiced tone of someone used to being obeyed without question. This is assault. I'm calling the police right now. You attacked me. She was already dialing, her voice rising to near hysteria. Hello, police. I've been attacked. Yes, my neighbor assaulted me. I think my ankle is broken. Community landscaping, future expansion. I gestured around at my clearly private property, complete with no trespassing signs. Every 50 feet, this is my ranch. I own this land. I have the deed. You're trespassing, and I have cameras recording everything. Her eyes widened at the mention of cameras, but she doubled down, That's what you think. This land has always been designated as community space. According to our original development plans from 1990, you're legally squatting on HOA property. She limped around, dramatically searching for her missing shoe with exaggerated movements, while still talking to the dispatcher. Yes, he's very aggressive. I fear for my safety. Please hurry. I watched in disbelief as she finally located her shoe and jammed her foot into it with angry movements. Then, in what seemed like a calculated act of vandalism, she grabbed the fence with both hands and gave it a violent shake. A section of chain link separated from the post with a metallic clang. Oops, she said with fake sweetness, lowering her phone for a moment. Looks like your fence needs some maintenance. You really should keep up with these things. Unsafe conditions like this are exactly why this land should be properly managed by the HOA. As she turned to leave, still talking dramatically to the dispatcher about her injuries, something fell from her torn pocket. A folded piece of paper landed in the beam of my flashlight. She didn't notice, too busy with her performance, and marched off into the darkness toward the gate, favoring her supposedly injured ankle. Except when she thought I wasn't looking. I waited until she was gone, then picked up the paper. It was damp with evening dew, but still readable at the top in neat handwriting were the words Garden Expansion Phase 3. With a rough sketch below, the sketch showed what looked like a garden layout, and the location marked with an X sat right where my chicken coop currently stood. Below the sketch was a date just 2 weeks away, marked groundbreaking ceremony. As I stood there studying this mysterious plan, Carol's parting words echoed from the darkness. You won't be able to stop this. The community was promised this land, and promises will be kept. Garden Expansion Phase 3. I looked at the soggy paper again, seeing more details in the sketch. What looked like pathways, flower beds, and was that a fountain, right where my chickens lived? What exactly was she planning to do with my land? The next 3 weeks turned my peaceful ranch into a war zone of psychological operations. It started the very next night after the fence incident at exactly 1000 p.m. Just as I was settling into bed, blinding floodlights erupted from the direction of Meadow Creek Estates. They were aimed directly at my bedroom window, turning night into harsh artificial day. When I drove over to investigate the next morning, I discovered newly installed security lights on the HOA property line, every single one angled precisely to hit my house for community safety, the maintenance worker told me with a shrug, clearly just following orders. The lights stayed on from dusk until dawn, making sleep nearly impossible without blackout curtains that I had to rush order online. Then came the letters. Despite not being part of the HOA, my mailbox began overflowing with official notices about violations. Non-compliant fence color. One read, complete with Carol's looping signature and the official HOA seal. Excessive natural vegetation creating eyesore condition, said another. My personal favorite accused my 3 chickens of being an unauthorized commercial livestock operation in violation of residential zoning. Each letter was more ridiculous than the last, but they came daily, sometimes multiple times per day, all sent certified mail requiring signature. The mailman started giving me pitying looks. The psychological pressure was clearly designed to wear me down, make me want to sell and leave. The rumor mill started churning throughout the local community. During my weekly trip to the feed store, Jake, the owner who'd become a friend, pulled me aside with a concerned expression. Hey Jack, heard you've been having some trouble with the folks next door. he said, lowering his voice and glancing around like Carol might be hiding behind the chicken feed. Carol Whitman's been in here telling everyone you're running some kind of illegal chemical operation on your land. Says she saw you burning toxic waste at night. Even suggested folks should call the county health department on you. I laughed bitterly. Burning chemicals. I had a barbecue last weekend, made some brisket. Since when is that illegal? Jake shrugged sympathetically. I figured it was nonsense, but she's got some people riled up. Even showed photos of smoke from your property. You might want to watch your back. My security cameras became my best friends and my most important witnesses. I upgraded the system, adding more cameras to cover every angle, and there was plenty to record. Carol appeared at my fence line at least twice a day, always with that measuring wheel, taking photos and making notes on a clipboard. Sometimes she brought others, usually board members from the HOA, pointing at my property and gesturing dramatically like a general planning an invasion. I started keeping a log of every incident, taking screenshots, backing up the footage to multiple drives. On one particularly bold afternoon, she even had a surveyor with her, though he looked uncomfortable and kept saying, "Ma'am, I can't survey property without the owner's permission." The tipping point came on a humid Thursday night, 2 weeks after the fence incident. I was reviewing design mock-up for a client when my motion alerts went absolutely crazy. All 4 cameras triggered simultaneously, my phone lighting up like a Christmas tree. I pulled up the feeds and felt my jaw drop. There, illuminated perfectly by the infrared cameras, was Carol's husband, Gary, methodically pounding red surveyor stakes into my property. He was well inside my fence line, working his way along what appeared to be a predetermined path. The man was dressed all in black, like some kind of suburban ninja, wearing gloves and using a professional laser measuring device. He moved with purpose, clearly following a plan, placing each stake at precise intervals. I grabbed my phone and flashlight and stormed outside, my heart pounding with anger and disbelief. By the time I reached him, he'd planted at least 6 stakes in a line, cutting directly through my lower pasture. The red stakes glowed in my flashlight beam like drops of blood on my land. "Gary," I shouted, "what the hell do you think you're doing?" He jumped like he'd been electrocuted, dropping his hammer with a clang. Unlike his wife, Gary seemed to have at least a shred of shame. His face turned red, even in the darkness, and he couldn't meet my eyes. Jack. Hi, I was just, Carol said. I mean, we're marking the original property boundaries for the expansion project. His voice trailed off as he realized how weak his excuse sounded. With what authority? I demanded, trying to keep my voice level despite the rage building inside me. This is criminal trespassing. You're on my land, inside my fence, destroying my property. You need to leave immediately before I call the sheriff. Gary shifted uncomfortably, glancing back toward the lights of Meadow Creek Estates, where I could see a silhouette watching from a window. Undoubtedly Carol. "Look, I don't want any trouble," he said, still not meeting my eyes. "Carol says this land belongs to the HOA according to the original development agreement from 1987. She's got papers and everything. The community was promised this land for a memorial garden. She's been planning it for years." I noticed something odd about the stakes as he gathered his tools. Each one had a small symbol on top, a logo I recognized from a high-end surveying company in the city. This wasn't some amateur operation they'd hired. Professionals for whatever they were planning, but why all the secrecy? Why sneak around at night if they truly believed they had a legal claim? After Gary slunk away into the darkness, I spent the next hour pulling up the stakes, each one feeling like a declaration of war. My hands shook with adrenaline as I worked back inside. I called my old friend Marcus in the city, needing someone to vent to who would understand. "Man, you left the city to avoid crazy neighbors and ended up next to the ultimate Karen," he said, after I explained everything. "What are you going to do?" I stared at the pile of red stakes I'd collected, then at the footage of Gary's trespassing. "I don't know yet, but I'm documenting everything. Something bigger is going on here. This isn't just about property lines." The next morning, I woke to find a new development. Someone had spray-painted orange lines across my driveway during the night, marking out what looked like a proposed road. The paint led from the HOA property directly through my front gate and curved toward my lower pasture, exactly where Gary had been placing stakes. I stood there in my pajamas and boots, coffee mug in hand, staring at the vandalism when Mrs. Henderson appeared at my gate. She was an elderly woman from the HOA who'd waved at me a few times but never spoken. "Young man," she called out, "I think it's time we talked. What they're doing to you, it's not the first time. They did the same thing to my late husband 15 years ago. But he wasn't as prepared as you seem to be." She glanced nervously back toward the HOA. "There are things you need to know about Carol's plans, about what was promised and what was stolen, but not here. Too many eyes. Can you meet me at the coffee shop in town tomorrow?" I nodded, sensing an ally in this bizarre war. As she walked away, I looked at the surveying marks, the damaged fence, the orange paint on my driveway. This wasn't random harassment anymore. This was a coordinated plan with professional backing, but a plan for what exactly? And how far would Carol go to execute it? 3 days after the lawyer's call, I was done playing defense. That Saturday morning, I walked my property line and discovered fresh red stakes in my pasture again. But this time, they formed a perfect rectangle, roughly the size of a basketball court, right where my chicken coop stood. My 3 remaining chickens, whom I had named Judge, Jury, and Executioner, pecked curiously at the stakes, as if mocking the intrusion. I had reached my limit. I grabbed my stake puller and headed down to reclaim my land once more. The morning dew soaked through my boots as I methodically removed each stake, tossing them into a growing pile. The work was therapeutic in a way. Each stake I pulled felt like reclaiming a piece of my sanity. I was on the last one, sweat dripping despite the cool morning air, when I heard her coming like a freight train. "Stop right there. Stop destroying community property." Carol came charging across the field like an enraged rhinoceros in pink velour, her phone held high, recording everything. She was practically running in her bedazzled sneakers, her face contorted with rage. Her perfectly styled hair bounced with each step, and she was already shouting into her phone, "I am recording this. This is evidence of criminal vandalism. He is destroying official HOA survey markers." I straightened up slowly, holding the last stake, keeping my movements calm and deliberate. Years of dealing with difficult clients had taught me the value of staying composed when others lost control. "Carol, these markers are on my land. You have no right to place anything here. This is the 3rd time this week I have had to remove them." I gestured to my security cameras mounted on posts around the property, "and I am recording to every angle, 24/7. Everything that happens on my property is documented." She stopped about 10 feet away, still filming her free hand, waving a manila folder. Like a weapon. That is where you are wrong. I have the original development plans right here. This land was promised to the community. It is in the covenant. She opened the folder with shaking hands, pulling out papers that looked like photocopies. Of photocopies yellowed with age, see 1990 premiere. Development, community garden space. It is all here in black and white. I had done my research after Mrs. Henderson's hints, promised by whom Carol, a developer who went bankrupt 20 years ago. Those plans were never executed. The bank foreclosed on everything I bought. This land free and clear from the bank in 2019. I have the deed, the title insurance, everything legally required. Her face shifted from red to purple, veins becoming visible on her forehead. You think you are so smart, don't you? Coming here from the city, thinking you can just take whatever you want. This was supposed to be mine, I mean ours. The community's. You dropped her phone, suddenly letting it dangle from her wrist strap, and grabbed the stake from my hands with surprising strength. This is my dream, my legacy. The Carol Whitman Memorial Garden. I have been planning it for 10 years. You will not ruin it. She raised the stake above her head like a weapon, her eyes wild with desperation. Carol, I said, backing away slowly, very aware that she was now armed and clearly unstable. Put that down. You are going to hurt someone. I kept my hands visible and non-threatening while mentally calculating the distance to my truck. She advanced on me, swinging the styly 10 years. Do you know what I have sacrificed, what I have planned? The rose garden was just the beginning. There were supposed to be fountains, an angel statue, a meditation pavilion with my name on it, my legacy. She swung again, missing me by inches. Carol, stop. This is assault. Put the stake down. I dodged another swing, trying to maintain distance while she ranted about her garden plans. Suddenly she froze mid-swing, a calculating look crossing her face. It was like watching someone flip a switch. The rage disappeared, replaced by something more sinister than in a move that would have impressed a professional soccer player. She threw herself to the ground, clutching her ankle. The stake flew from her hands as she fell. Oh my God, he hit me. Help someone, help me. He is attacking me. She writhed on the ground in an Oscar-worthy performance, her hands shaking as she grabbed for her phone. Oh my God, my ankle, I think it is broken. He attacked me with a weapon. I stood there, completely dumbfounded, still holding my stake puller. While she performed her theatrical display, the security cameras were catching everything from multiple angles, showing her self-inflicted fall in crystal clear detail. Carol, what are you doing? I did not touch you. This is insane. But she was already dialing with fingers that seemed surprisingly steady for someone in supposed agony. Hello, police. I have been attacked. Yes, my neighbor assaulted me with a metal stake. I am at the Richardson Ranch off Highway 47. Please, hurry. I think my ankle is broken. He is still standing over me with a weapon. She described in vivid, fictional detail how I had charged at her with a metal stake and struck her repeatedly while she was trying to discuss community matters peacefully. Her story grew more made. Yes, officer, he has been harassing me for weeks. I am the HOA president, just trying to do my job. He threatened me before, said he would do anything to keep the community from rightful land. Within 10 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up to my gate, lights flashing but no sirens. I recognized Officer Miller from previous community events, a level-headed veteran cop who had seen it all. His younger partner looked fresh out of the academy, eager and nervous. Mr. Richardson. Miller nodded as he approached. hand resting on his duty belt but not threatening. We received a report of an assault with a weapon. Can you tell me what happened here? Carol's wailing increased dramatically. He is right there. He attacked me. Look at my ankle. I want him arrested. Immediately, I am pressing charges. This is assault with a deadly weapon. She tried to stand and immediately collapsed again with a theatrical cry. Officer Miller crouched beside her, his experienced eyes taking in the scene. The undamaged ankle showed no signs of swelling or trauma, the stake lying far from where I stood, the multiple security cameras covering the area. His lips twitched slightly. Ma'am, can you tell me exactly what happened? Into her tale, adding new embellishments with each sentence, according to her version. I was a violent madman who had attacked her unprovoked while she was surveying future. Barely concealed amusement. Your side of the story. I stayed calm, knowing the truth was on my side. Officer Miller, I have security cameras covering this entire area from multiple angles. Would you like to see the footage? It shows everything that just happened, including Mrs. Whitman grabbing a stake from me, swinging it as a weapon, and then throwing herself on the ground. Carol's wailing stopped abruptly. Cameras, her voice cracked. That is, those are probably fake or edited. You cannot trust technology these days. I know what happened. I am the victim here. We walked to my house, Carol suddenly able to walk without any sign of injury inside my office. Clearly showed Carol charging at me, grabbing the saint, swinging it wildly while ranting about her memorial garden, and then her calculated pause before throwing herself to the ground. Officer Miller watched with professional interest. Mrs. Whitman, are you aware that filing a false police report is a crime? Carol's face had gone pale. This is not over, she hissed, before limping away dramatically. This land was promised to me for my memorial garden. You will see. What kind of person plans a memorial garden for themselves while they are still alive? And why was she so convinced my land belonged to her? 3 days after the fake police report incident, I was repairing the fence section Carol had damaged when a voice called out from the HOA. Intelligent eyes, sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. I am Eleanor Henderson, she said, extending a thin hand. I live in the blue Victorian on Meadow Lane. I saw what happened with Carol and the police. The whole neighborhood is talking about it. I climbed down from the fence, wiping my hands on my jeans. Mrs. Henderson, you mentioned something before about your husband. I remembered her cryptic warning from days. For open air, Carol has eyes and ears everywhere in this neighborhood. I led her through the gate to my porch, where she settled gratefully into a chair with a deep sigh. I have lived in Meadow Creek for 35 years. She began pulling a worn photo album from her large purse long before it was Meadow Creek. Back when it was just the old Garrison farm. I knew the original owners and bought my house directly from them in 1989. She opened the album, showing black and white photographs of rolling hills and farmland. Premier Development bought most of the land for the subdivision, but some parcels, like yours, were sold separately to private buyers. She flipped to a hand-drawn map dated 1990. This was Premier's original master plan. See this section marked Future Community Gardens. That is where your property sits now. My blood ran cold. So, Carol is right. This was supposed to be HOA property. Eleanor laughed sharply. No, dear. Premier Development went bankrupt in 1994. They never built the gardens or transferred the land. The bank foreclosed on everything. Your land was sold legitimately through proper channels. Carol knows this, but refuses to accept reality. She pulled out a newspaper clipping from 2016 with the headline, "Local HOA President Proposes Memorial Garden." The photo showed Carol holding architectural drawings, smiling ambitiously with completing the vision, but it was never about the community. Eleanor produced a folded blueprint that looked professional and recent last month at the clubhouse. Landscape design dated 3 months ago. My entire 5 acres had been transformed into the Carol Whitman Memorial Garden and Reflection Center. The plans showed 50 varieties of roses, winding paths, fountains, and a massive central monument. The inscription made me laugh out loud. Carol Whitman, 1965, visionary leader of Meadow Creek Estate. She had literally planned her own memorial with a blank death date. This cost $15. Zero of HOA funds, Eleanor said. Grimly listed as community improvement planning. The board has no idea about the real scope of this project. She showed me a photo of a distinguished looking man. My husband Harold fought Carol for 3 years when she tried to claim part of our yard. The stress contributed to his heart attack. After he died, I gave her the 10 feet she wanted. I have regretted it ever since. Eleanor lowered her voice last week. I overheard her discussing adverse possession laws with someone from city planning. She is trying to establish a pattern of use on your property. The stakes, the surveying, even the police incident are all part of building a legal case to steal your land. The pieces clicked into place immediately. This was not random harassment, but a calculated legal strategy to steal my property through fraudulent means. Look at this notation, I said, studying the blueprint carefully. Verify utility easement before construction. What does that mean exactly? Eleanor smiled for the first time. That might be your ace in the hole. The city established utility easements in 1962 for water mains. One runs right through where Carol planted her preliminary rose garden 18 months ago. She has been trying to get the city to abandon it, but they need it for maintenance access. She gathered her materials to leave. Be careful, Jack. Carol is more dangerous than she appears. She has invested too much into this dream, both financially and emotionally. When narcissists get cornered, they lash out at the door. She paused. Check the county records about that easement. Carol's current garden might already be in violation. The city just does not know it yet. After Eleanor left, I sat on my porch, staring at the blueprint of Carol's delusional memorial garden. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. She had not just been trying to take my land. She had already designed her monument, planned every pathway, chosen every rose variety, probably had quotes for that bronze statue. I noticed a sketch in the corner marking a time capsule location to be opened in 2075, containing photos of Carol and her so-called achievements. She was trying to control her legacy 50 years after death. But the utility easement was interesting. I pulled up the county website on my laptop, searching for easement records. What I found made me smile. The 20-feet easement ran directly through Carol's rose garden. The documents clearly stated no permanent structures or deep-rooted plants were allowed. Carol had been violating city ordinances for 18 months. She must have discovered this recently, which explained her desperate escalation. My land was the only nearby property without easement restrictions, where she could relocate her garden. But why the sudden urgency? What deadline was she facing that made her risk criminal charges with that fake 911 call? And more importantly, what would she do next when cornered like this? The formal letter arrived Tuesday morning, delivered by a nervous process server who apologized, while I signed for it 20 pages of legal threats wrapped in expensive letterhead from Brewster Holcomb and Associates. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee growing cold as I read through their creative interpretation of property law according to their twisted version. I was illegally occupying HOA common land, destroying HOA property, threatening HOA officials, creating an eyesore that damaged property values, and operating a commercial farm in a residential area. The last accusation made me laugh bitterly. 3 chickens, named judge, jury, and executioner, apparently constituted a commercial operation, the letter demanded. I vacate the property within 30 days or face a lawsuit seeking not just eviction but damages for lost community use, calculated at $1.00 per day since I had moved in 6 months ago. The math was staggering. They wanted me gone and completely bankrupt for 2 days. I spiraled between rage and despair. I had sunk my entire life savings into this property, escaping the city to find peace and quiet. Now some delusional HOA president wanted to steal it for her personal monument. I called my lawyer, Tom Bradley, immediately. Tom, we need to talk. Carol Whitman just escalated to nuclear warfare after I sent him everything, including Ellie. Revelations about the Memorial Garden plans. He whistled low through the phone jack. This is harassment disguised as legal action. They are trying to bankrupt you with legal fees, even if they cannot win, but it is still dangerous. Do not do anything rash. Let me review everything and prepare our response. I spent those 2 days pacing my property, checking the fence line, obsessively second-guessing my decision to move here. Part of me wanted to give up, sell the land, find somewhere else without HOA drama, maybe Alaska, where the nearest neighbor would be miles away from any property line disputes. Then I re-watched the video of Carol's fake 911 call for the 100th time. The way she had paused before throwing herself to the ground, that calculating look in her eyes, the smirk she had given the camera before starting her performance. She thought she could bulldoze anyone in her path for her vanity project. No, I was not running from this fight, Tom, I said when I called him back, my voice steady. With newfound determination, I want to go nuclear. To what is the most thorough property survey we can get. I want every inch documented, so clearly that no judge could ever question it. There was a pause before he responded. An Alta NPS survey. It is the gold standard for property documentation, shows everything, including boundaries, easements, encroachments, improvements, topography, underground utilities. Not cheap, though we are talking $8 to $10. Zero minimum. I did not hesitate for a second. Do it and make sure. They mark everything, every fence post, every tree, every spot where Carol has been trespassing. I want it all documented. The survey team arrived the following Monday morning like an invading army. 3 trucks pulled up. 6 professionals emerged with enough equipment to map a small country. The lead surveyor was Patricia Martinez, a nonsense woman with 30 years of experience, who looked like she could stare down a hurricane. Carol must have been watching, because within minutes she was at the fence line with her phone out, filming everything. Excuse me, she called to Patricia, her voice shrill with fake authority. I am the HOA president. What is happening here? This affects our community. I should have been informed of this activity. Patricia did not even look up from her equipment setup. Property survey, ma'am. Please stay back from the work area. We need precise measurements. Carol's voice rose in octave. But this is about the disputed community land. I have documents, original development plans from 1990. Ma'am, Please stay back, Patricia repeated, in a tone that suggested this was not her first encounter with difficult neighbors by noon half. The HOA board had gathered at the fence line watching the surveyor's work with military precision. Carol had set up what looked like a command center on the HOA side, complete with folding chairs and a card table. Where she spread out her papers, she kept pointing at documents and gesturing dramatically while filming everything. The survey took 3 full days. Every morning, Carol appeared with reinforcements, her phone and her clipboard documenting what she called irregularities and suspicious activity. She seemed confident, even smug, probably believing the survey would somehow support her claims about the 1990 development plans. On the second day, she even brought a banner that read "Future Site of Carol Whitman Memorial Garden" and tried to hang it on my fence until Patricia told her she was interfering with the official survey. Patricia approached me on the final afternoon with a tablet showing preliminary results. "Mr. Richardson, I need to show you something very interesting." We walked to the corner where my property met the HOA common area. She pulled up an overlay showing property lines, easements, and improvements with stunning clarity. "Your property lines are exactly as described in your deed. Every single inch is legally yours. No question whatsoever. But look at this." She zoomed in on the area where the HOA property bordered mine. "See this easement running through here?" She traced a red line on the screen. "It is a 20-oot municipal water district easement established in 1962. Still active and still enforceable by the city." I nodded, remembering Eleanor's hint, "But it is not on my property, right?" Patricia smiled, the first time I had seen her expression change from professional neutrality. "No, it is not on your property at all, but look where it goes." She pulled up an aerial photo with the easement overlaid in bright red. The line ran directly through the center of Carol's preliminary rose garden on the HOA common area. Those rose bushes, that decorative stone wall, those planted trees are all in violation of the easement terms. You cannot build permanent structures or plant deep-rooted vegetation on utility easements. The water district has the right to tear it all up for maintenance access. The implications hit me like lightning. Carol's existing garden would have to be destroyed completely. Her memorial garden plans would be impossible on the current HOA land. No wonder she was so desperate to take my property. "Patricia, can you make sure all of this is clearly marked in the final survey report?" "Every detail," I asked. "That is my job, Mr. Richardson. You will have the most thorough survey documentation possible." The final survey report arrived 3 days later, 40 pages of maps and legal descriptions. Now I had ammunition for the real battle ahead. Did Carol really think a fancy lawyer letter would let her steal my land? What was her next move going to be? The morning of the HOA meeting, I woke to find an official orange notice taped to the front gate. The paper bore the water district's official seal, and the words "Notice of Easement Violation" were printed in bold letters across the top. I could not help but smile as I sipped my coffee on the porch, watching from a distance. Officer Miller had indeed come through perfectly. The notice was not addressed to me, but to the Meadow Creek Estates HOA, regarding unauthorized plantings and structures within municipal utility easement. It included a satellite photo with Carol's entire rose garden circled in red, every bush marked as a violation. The timing could not have been more perfect. Carol's carefully planned victory meeting was about to become her complete downfall. My phone rang. Before I had finished my first cup, it was Tom, my lawyer, and he sounded almost gleeful. "Jack, you are going to want to hear this. I just got a call from the Water District's legal department. They are sending a formal cease and desist to the HOA today. Apparently, they have been trying to access that easement for routine maintenance for months, but the rose garden is blocking their equipment. Someone kept filing complaints every time they tried to access it, claiming they were trespassing on HOA property." I sat down my coffee, giving this my full attention. "How long have the roses been there exactly?" "According to their records, about 18 months. And here is the kicker. They are planning major infrastructure work next month, new water main installation to replace the 1962 pipes. That whole garden will have to be dug up." This was better than I could have hoped for. I spent the rest of the day preparing for the evening meeting like a general preparing for battle. I printed copies of my survey, the easement maps, relevant legal documents, and created a PowerPoint presentation that would leave no room for doubt. I included screenshots from my security footage showing Carol climbing my fence, Gary planting stakes in the dead of night, and, most importantly, Carol's theatrical performance, calling 911. I even found the email Eleanor had mentioned where Carol asked an architect to adjust property lines to match my vision for the memorial garden. That particular piece of evidence would be especially damaging to her credibility. As evening approached, I put on my best business casual outfit, loaded my materials into my truck, and headed to the Meadow Creek Clubhouse with confidence. The clubhouse was packed beyond capacity by the time I arrived. Folding chairs had been brought in to supplement the regular seating, and people were standing along the walls. The energy in the room was electric. With anticipation, Carol sat at the head table like a queen holding court. Flanked by her most loyal board members, she had dressed for battle in a severe black suit, her hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. A stack of documents sat in front of her like ammunition. When she spotted me, "Discussion," Carol announced, banging her gavel with unnecessary force. "I want to address the malicious rumors being spread by certain non-residents who have infiltrated our community." She looked directly at me with cold eyes. "The board has obtained legal confirmation that the 5-acre parcel currently being occupied illegally rightfully belongs to our community based on the original 1990 development agreement. We will be taking all necessary steps to reclaim this land for its intended purpose. A beautiful memorial garden for all residents to enjoy." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Further, Carol raised her voice. "The current occupant has been harassing board members, destroying HOA property, and making threats. We have video evidence and police reports to support immediate action." Eleanor stood up slowly beside me. "Point of order, Madame President. I am a community member of 35 years, and I would like to see this evidence. I would also like to know why HOA funds were used to commission landscape designs for property the HOA does not own." Gasps echoed through the room before Carol could object. I was already walking to the front with my laptop. I connected it to the projector and began my presentation. The first slide showed my official property survey. This is an Alta NPS survey. As you can see, every inch of that 5 acres is legally mine. Carol sputtered protests, but I continued showing the county records. Then the security footage. The room fell silent as they watched Carol's fake 911 call, her theatrical fall, clearly visible from multiple angles. Officer Miller stepped forward. I can confirm the authenticity of that footage. Mrs. Whitman was warned about filing false police reports. The room erupted when I showed the memorial. Garden blueprint. Carol's Garden Memorial. She wants to name it after herself, residents exclaimed. I clicked to the final slide, showing the easement. This red line is a utility easement building. Here is illegal. The water district has full access. Right as if on cue, the clubhouse doors opened. 3 men in water district uniforms entered. We're looking for the HOA board president regarding an easement violation. The supervisor announced that all plants within the easement must be removed within 7 days. Harold's composure finally cracked. You can't do that. Those roses are worth thousands. David stood up. I moved for a vote of no confidence in our current president. The vote was swift, 47-3, against Carol. As I gathered my things, Carol intercepted me at the door, mascara running down her cheeks. This isn't over. I'll sue you personally. I looked at her calmly. It is over. Go home, plant roses in your own yard. But would she really give up that easily? Or was this just the beginning of an even more desperate phase? The aftermath of Carol's removal was swift and absolutely merciless. Within 3 days of that explosive meeting, a forensic accountant was hired to review creek estates that would reverberate for years to come. Carol had not just used HOA funds for her memorial garden design. She had been systematically redirecting money through a complex web of suspicious transactions over the past 5 years. There were landscaping contracts awarded to her cousin's company at rates 3 times the market average, mysterious consulting fees paid directly to herself for vague special projects, and most damning of all, nearly $50. Zero sitting in a secret account labeled Future Development Fund that was clearly earmarked for one purpose, only acquiring my land. Whitman, I learned all of this from Eleanor Henderson, who had been elected interim president by unanimous vote and was now gleefully cleaning house with the efficiency of someone who had waited years for this exact moment. We sat on my porch, week after the meeting, sharing coffee and watching my 3 chickens pecking peacefully around the yard, blissfully ignorant of all the drama. You should see her house, Eleanor told me, stirring her coffee with obvious satisfaction. She has not come out once the curtains are drawn. Day and night lights are off. Most of the time Gary has been seen at the lawyer's office, are desperately trying to negotiate a plea deal to avoid criminal charges. The district attorney is very interested in the embezzlement angle, especially since she used her position of trust to steal from elderly residents on fixed incomes. The vindication in Ella Lehner's voice was unmistakable. After years of watching Carol's tyranny, 2 weeks after that fateful meeting, at the front gate, I expected to see a delivery truck, since I had art supplies coming. Instead, I saw Carol standing there. She was no longer the imperious HOA president, but a completely diminished figure in a wrinkled t-shirt and faded jeans. Her once perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup concealed her exhaustion, and there was no pretense left in her posture. She was not trying to break in or cause any trouble, just standing there at my gate, staring at my land with hollow, defeated eyes. I debated ignoring her, letting her stand there until she gave up and left, but curiosity won over caution, and I found myself walking down to the gate, though I stayed carefully on my side of the fence. Harold, I said, simply keeping my voice neutral. She startled, as if emerging from a deep trance, then met my eyes for the first time since I had known her. I saw something other than entitlement, rage, and delusion. I saw desperation, complete defeat, and maybe even a glimpse of painful self-awareness. "I am not here to cause trouble," she said quietly, her voice broken. "I just wanted to see it one more time, to see what it could have been." I studied her carefully, maintaining my distance. "See what exactly?" She gestured weakly at my pasture, where her imaginary garden would have been built. "My garden, my legacy, my proof that I mattered in this world." Her voice cracked on the last word, and tears began forming in her eyes. "Do you know what it is like to be nobody? To know you will be completely forgotten the moment you die. No children to remember you, no great achievements to mark your existence. Nothing to show you were ever here." I leaned against the gate, considering my response carefully. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but then I remembered the harassment, the lies, the attempted theft, the nights without sleep from those floodlights. "So you thought stealing my land would make you somebody important?" I asked, not unkindly, but firmly. "It was not stealing." The old fire flickered briefly in her eyes before dying again. "It was supposed to be community land all along. I spent 20 years believing that, planning for it, dreaming about it every single night. I would look at those old development plans and imagine my garden in full bloom, the roses, the fountains, the meditation pavilion with my name carved in marble. When you bought it, you destroyed everything. 20 years of dreams gone in an instant." She laughed bitterly, a broken sound that held no humor. "My whole life has been nothing but broken promises. My husband's affairs that everyone knows about, but pretends not to see. My inability to have children while watching everyone else with their perfect families. My career that went nowhere because I was not pretty enough, or young enough, or connected enough. The HOA was all I had left. The garden was going to be proof that I mattered." "You know what your legacy is now?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "You are the cautionary tale, the president who got so drunk on power she committed actual crimes, the woman who tried to build a monument to herself with stolen money on stolen land. That is exactly how you will be remembered." Carol flinched, as if I had physically slapped her. Tears ran freely down her cheeks now, and she looked far older than her 50-some years. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I know. I destroyed everything trying to build something. How is that for irony?" She turned and walked away without another word, her shoulders slumped in complete defeat. I never saw her again after that day. A month later, the Water District completed their infrastructure work. The rose garden was completely gone, replaced by a neat strip of grass over the new water main. The HOA, under Eleanor's competent leadership, voted to use the recovered funds to reduce everyone's dues and finally fix the playground that had been dangerously neglected for years. Gary and Carol Whitman quietly sold their house and left town without any fanfare. The criminal charges were eventually settled with hefty fines, full restitution payments, and 200 hours of community service. No jail time, but their reputation was utterly destroyed. The new family who bought their house seemed genuinely nice, a young couple with twin daughters who loved the quiet neighborhood and waved at me whenever they drove past. As for me, I finally got the peace and quiet I had moved here to find. My chickens, judge, jury, and executioner roamed freely without fear of mysterious disappearances. My design business thrived now that I could actually focus on work without constant harassment. I even put up a new sign by my gate that made me smile every time I saw it: private property professionally surveyed and verified, no trespassing, no exceptions. Eleanor still visited for coffee once a week, and she had become a genuinely good friend. 6 months after that final confrontation, I was checking my mail when I found an unexpected letter, no return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stood there for a long moment, holding Carol's apology in my hands. Then I did something that surprised even me. I did not throw it away. I tucked it carefully into my desk drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that power corrupts, that obsession blinds, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well on your own terms. The sun was setting over my property, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. My chickens were settling in for the night, and somewhere in the distance, a mockingbird sang its evening song. I had moved here for peace, and after everything I had finally found it. Good fences make good neighbors, but good security cameras make even better evidence. Justice served cold might be sweet, but justice served with proper documentation, legal surveys,